Okay, right, we're gonna try this again because the first time I recorded this video, the entire thing was out of focus. Take 2 on talking about sex. Hey guys, it's Jamie, and today I'm gonna be talking all about sex and sex education. Yes, I am going to be talking about sex. It's something that may surprise some of you watching because sex has always been a topic that I have stayed away from on my channel, and the only time I've ever talked about it is to say I'm not going to talk about it, but in reference to myself, and I still maintain that. I want to keep that part of my life private. But what I thought might be useful and helpful, and what I certainly would have found helpful like 6-7 years ago, is just some general sex advice and sex education tips, primarily aimed at trans guys, but also some of these tips are going to be like universally applicable or applicable to all types of trans people. In this video, I don't want to hold back. I'm going to talk very openly about sex. I'm going to be very mature in this video, although sometimes the word penis makes me giggle, but I'm going to try my best. I don't know why, it's just a funny word. But I don't want to hold back on like using terms and like describing things. Things might sound a bit graphic. So if you are not comfortable with that kind of chat, or if you're my mum, then maybe don't watch any further. So yeah, this is just gonna be a list of like some tips about sex, sex education, dealing with dysphoria in terms of having sex, hormones and sex, and just all that kind of thing that will, again, primarily be aimed at trans people who are assigned female at birth, so either trans men or non-binary people who are assigned female at birth, but there will be some stuff that's applicable to other trans people, and then just like people in general, so some of them are just sex tips for all. Yay for sex education. Let's get going. Number 1, don't do anything you're not comfortable with doing, and don't feel guilty about not wanting to do it. That was quite a long one. And the first thing to mention in this very first point, and which applies throughout the rest of this video, is you do not have to want to have sex at all. There is nothing wrong with not being interested or comfortable with the idea of sex. Basically, you don't have to have sex. It's perfectly fine to not want to do it whatsoever. And this is one of those points that goes for anybody. Whoever you are, however you identify, you don't have to do anything that you are not happy to do or not comfortable to do, and you shouldn't feel guilty about it. But being trans, and if you have gender dysphoria, it can really add like an extra ingredient of complication into the mix of knowing what you are actually comfortable with yourself. Because like dysphoria can just like pop up at any moment. Like you can feel like you're totally fine and then suddenly bam, dysphoria ruins the moment. It's all about realizing that if you suddenly start feeling uncomfortable with something, it's okay to say something and to stop. If you know that something's going to make you feel uncomfortable, don't feel like you have to do it, even if your partner or the person or people that you are having sex with or going to have sex with really want to. You don't have to do it. And don't feel guilty about saying no. If you don't want to do something, say no. Number 2, boundaries are really important, and they go both ways, or however many ways there are people having sex in a certain situation. When you are having sex or an intimate relationship with anybody, it's really important to discuss and be aware and respect each other's boundaries before stuff happens. This doesn't have to be like as formal as it sounds, just like sit down at a meeting table and take notes on each other's boundaries and what you're comfortable with and everything. It's just about having that conversation and being open with each other and learning it as you go as well, because sometimes you're not always sure initially before you start doing stuff and everything. Just make sure that you communicate yours, you listen to theirs, and you respect each other. I think something else that's really important if you're a trans person and you're going to be with somebody who isn't trans, like you're looking to get intimate with someone who's not trans, to realize that they might not have been with a trans person before, and that might be something that's very new. Trans people aren't mythical unicorns, but it's not like an everyday thing for some people. They might not know how to approach being intimate with you, or what terms to use, or what they're comfortable with in the situation. So that's another thing that's really important to be open with and to discuss openly. Number 3, testosterone isn't a contraceptive. You can still get pregnant if you're on testosterone, even if you're not having periods anymore, and no matter how long you've been on T for. Unless you've had a hysterectomy, if you're having sex with someone who produces sperm and you're not using any kind of contraceptive, even if you're on testosterone, you can get pregnant. So never rely on T to stop that from happening. Always use a contraceptive if you don't want to get pregnant. Number 4, having sex in a certain way doesn't invalidate your transness. So basically, I've heard from a lot of trans guys in particular that if they enjoy having vaginal sex, it makes them feel like they shouldn't enjoy it, or like they should hate that part of their body and they feel guilty about enjoying it. And sometimes people even question whether they're trans because they don't have dysphoria over that part of their body and they enjoy using it in intimate situations. But basically, there is nothing wrong with having vaginal sex or using that part of your body during sex. If that's what you enjoy, then go for it. Don't feel guilty about enjoying it, and just realize that it doesn't invalidate you being trans, it doesn't invalidate your gender identity at all. For lots of people, it is a complete no-go because it causes a lot of dysphoria, and for other people it is completely fine and very enjoyable, and then some people like fall in the middle between those two and like are happy sometimes and not others and everything like that. Any way of feeling is absolutely fine, and no way is more or less valid or correct. Every way is correct. And this doesn't just count for vaginal sex. Any way that you as a trans person enjoy having sex doesn't invalidate your gender identity. You do what you enjoy doing as long as it's consensual. Consensual or consensual? Consensual. Sounds weird now. Number 5, the way you feel about your body and about yourself in intimate situations may change as you transition. This can count for the social side of transitioning as well, but primarily I'm going to talk about the medical side of stuff. So if you do go down the route of medically transitioning, so taking hormones such as testosterone and having surgeries or whichever combination you go for, this may lead to changes in the way that you feel about your body, and also changes in the way your partner might feel about your body and respond to you. And in turn, that may change the way that you go about having sex, or the way that you enjoy having sex, or the things that you enjoy and the things that you are comfortable may all change as you transition, and the way you feel about yourself changes. So for example, if you are a trans guy and you bind and you haven't had top surgery yet, you may just not ever want anybody to see, touch, go near your chest whatsoever. But once you've had top surgery, it may be something that you really enjoy and you really like having your chest touched in that kind of situation and everything. So stuff like that can change. That's a really obvious example. This is basically kind of a reminder that the way you feel now might not be the way you feel forever, and the way you enjoy having sex and what you're comfortable with may change over time. It's something that you need to keep an open communication with your partner and how they're feeling about it as well. So just whoever you're with, however many people you're with, just keep communicating what you are liking and acknowledge it within yourself as well. Number 6, kind of related to number 5, but different enough that it can have a separate point, I think. Basically, testosterone changes things. We all know testosterone changes many things. Some great things and some things that you maybe don't want. Hello, hair loss. But when it comes to sex and intimate situations, there are 2 things that testosterone change that kind of directly impact this for most people. And the first is an increased sex drive, and the second is lower growth. So the area downstairs grows and you get hornier, basically. So typically testosterone will cause an increase in your sex drive, and for some people this can be very dramatic and happen very early on after taking testosterone. Other people it's a bit calmer, and for some people you won't really experience much at all. It just depends on you, but on average most people will experience an increase in their sex drive when they start testosterone. Typically this doesn't last forever, it's just during that kind of like initial phase, like the first few months to a year kind of time, and then it like calms down again. And then alongside this, another very early change that can happen for some people within the first couple of weeks is testosterone will cause growth in the downstairs region. And just to make it really clear what happens, basically the clitoris will get bigger to the point where it will resemble a miniature penis, and I think the typical growth is around 1 to 3 inches. Yeah, so increased sex drive and a bigger dick, that's what happens when you take testosterone for most people. What can happen with that though is an increased sex drive isn't always welcome if sex is something that makes you feel uncomfortable, or isn't something that you enjoy, or is something that you want to do but dysphoria is kind of being a pain in the ass with it. So just be aware that testosterone may increase your sex drive. And then also with lower growth, it can make that area a lot more sensitive as well. And what you might find is that things increase in size and start to rub, and also because they're more sensitive, this can be very uncomfortable. So just as a little tip, I would maybe avoid tight underwear. and go for something a bit looser fitting whilst everything's changing. And finally, number 7, sex is not just about penetration. I do feel like there is this massive assumption that the only way, the gold star standard way of having sex is penis, vagina, penis goes in the vagina, happy days. But no, that is not the only way to have sex. There are many, many different ways to go about it and go about being intimate and everything. There does not need to be a penis and a vagina. There does not need to be any kind of penetration whatsoever. You do what you enjoy, and that is sex. And on the topic of penetration, that's the end of the video. I have no idea why I ended it like that. I'm sorry, I didn't know what else to say. That is all the advice and tips I have for this video. I'm sure I could make multiple videos like this because I just think that sex education in general is such an important thing, and then sex education among minority groups is just not talked about enough. I wasn't even taught that trans people existed during my sex education. I learned what cis people look like naked in my sex education and what a tampon looked like and how absorbent it is. I was shocked by how absorbent it was. And that was it. Nothing about being trans, and definitely no trans specific sex ed. So I would have loved something like this 6-7 years ago. So if this can help just a couple of you with a few of the tips and, I don't know, be reassuring in any way or helpful in any way, then that would be amazing. If you have any tips of your own, then please add them in the comments below. If I was also wrong on anything, then please do correct me. I really hope I wasn't. And yeah, that is everything. I hope you liked this video, and I hope it was at least somewhat helpful and not boring, and oh, I'm really sweaty. Stay safe, and as always guys, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Much love. Bye.